Hello and welcome to Knitting on the Lake. My name is Kelly and I am your host. In case you're new here, I thought I would introduce myself. I am a knitter based in the Boston area, and I've been podcasting now for, I don't know, maybe 2 or 3 months. And I basically talk about what I've got going on in my own knitting journey, my works in progress, my finished objects, and I also try to talk about some topics within knitting that I think are of interest. My background is kind of varied. I was right out of college working in advertising and marketing, and I did that for about 10 years, and then I pivoted after having my first son to a career in interior design, which I did for a little over 10 years. And since COVID, I have kind of tapered off on the interior design business, although I still do consider myself an interior designer. I certainly have the training and I do a lot of design work in my own home. For my own family now, and I utilize a lot of what I've learned in my career, both in marketing and in design, in my knitting hobby, as well as this podcast. I just saw a little thing that looked like the camera was not quite straight. You know that little line, if you have an iPhone, there's like that little line that turns yellow if you're not quite straight. So I apologize for that little adjustment. So last week I published 2 videos that I just wanted to draw your attention to in case you're interested. They were parts 1 and 2 of a 3-part series that I am doing all about test knitting. And I think it's worthwhile to take a look whether you are a knitter who is interested in test knitting, whether you might be a test knitter and have some experience in that realm, and just want to understand, maybe what other people who are doing the same are seeing and observing. And then from, obviously designers. I know for a fact, some of my designer friends and contacts have watched it and I've gotten some great feedback from them. So take a look, 1 back on the timeline, 1 and 2 back on the timeline, that is. And I hope you take a look and enjoy. So for this week, I have more of a traditional podcast format, I guess. I'm going to be sharing some recent finished objects as well as works in progress. And although I don't normally share like every single acquisition, I do have some acquisitions of note that I wanted to kind of spotlight. All right, so my first finished object is one that I am wearing right now. It is the Variations Shawl by Neilan. And I did this as a test knit for Tiff, and I was able to utilize yarns from my stash. So the idea behind this pattern obviously is sort of like a little bit of color play. It's a sport weight pattern, and it's really designed for you to be able to, obviously you can go out and buy the yarn you want to make it, or you can pull from what you already have and, sort of watch them play and interact together. I chose 2 solids and 2 different color changing yarns. One was from Junction fiber mill, the other was from Spincycle, and tried to pull them together in a palette. And I will show on the screen the first picture that I took of the yarns all wound into cakes so that you can kind of see what I was looking at before this kind of came to fruition. I did spend a little bit of time in the beginning of the project before casting on, just sort of planning out where I thought my colors would start to change so that I would be sure to have some contrast of especially these purples to the greens, and I'll put up some pictures so you can see a little bit more of the shawl, but I was really, really happy with the way that it turned out. Maybe I'll take it off so that I can show you. So it started off here where I'm pointing. And so my background yarn, so to speak, is actually the green, but I was also using a green yarn for like the foreground yarn, the yarn that you see that's kind of like a raised rib here. It's called like a interrupted garter stitch. Sorry, I lied. So the green doesn't raise up until this section. So anyway, I was really trying to plan it so this green background color faded off before I introduced my next solid contrast color. And I just think it worked out beautifully. Like, I was so happy. And you know, it's really not something you can, I mean, given all the increases, it's really hard to be scientific about it, but I was really happy with how it came out, and how the colors flowed together and played together, and how I have this kind of like warm, earthy thing going on near the bind off. And, you know, I was just really thrilled with how this came out. And I got a lot of really great feedback on Instagram. So if you already saw it, apologies if this was redundant at all, but thank you so much for your sweet comments. I definitely recommend this pattern. It's like very easy to memorize, like right out of the gate, like from the first few rows, you've pretty much got it down. It comes together quickly. And if you have, you know, yarns like from, you know, Spincycle dyed in the wool, or Junction fiber mill making tracks light, yarns like that change colors, those are really tailor-made for a pattern like this. And then you layer on these solid colors that you probably already have on hand, and you can just kind of make something completely unique and magical, and then wear it and enjoy it. Next finished object is also a test knit, and this was a test knit for a newer designer named Rita Dowd, and on Instagram she is LimunCrafted or LimunCrafted. I realized I might not be pronouncing that correctly, but anyway, she has been really putting the pedal to the metal on some new knitwear designs. She has a lot going on in testing right now, and she's starting to release a lot of these patterns that she's been like very prolifically designing lately. So I test knit the Woody vest, and she has other things in the works for this stitch pattern. There's a tee, there's a tank, and I think that's it at this point, at least, you know, for this time of year. Maybe at some point there'll be a pullover, but it's a really nice stitch pattern. The yarn that I used was Brooklyn Tweed Shelter in the color Old World. And I have to say that while I think this is a fabulous pattern and a really great wardrobe staple, I don't think I picked the right yarn to make it with. I had some challenges with gauge, particularly when I had to do purling, and where as soon as it's a top-down pattern, and as soon as I had to start working in the round and my pearls were on top of pearls, those gauge issues became apparent, and I had swatched flat, and it didn't. That issue just could never have come up, because basically I'd be purling on one side and it would be a little wonky, but then on the other side I would be knitting that, you know, underneath that same column of stitches, and it would kind of resolve itself. But when you're knitting on top of knits and purling on top of pearls, it just sort of magnified the problem, basically the problem I was having. This is a woolen spun yarn, and it's a very sticky yarn, and I'm a loose knitter and I knit continental style, And what I realized was happening after a while was that my motion of purling was getting basically stuck on the purl bump of the previous stitch on my right needle. And that's might be difficult to envision. I actually tried taking a picture to send to the designer to explain what was going on and basically apologize for like my poor work quality, but I think a lot of it came out in the blocking, and I don't think it's really too visible. You know, it's not like I'm embarrassed to wear this or anything, but as I was making it, I was feeling a little bit shy about it because I just didn't think it was my best quality work. But I definitely learned a lot about how those types of yarns are going to behave in certain situations. And I have to say, it's not that I would not use Shelter again, although I probably won't use it again because Brooklyn Tweed is ceasing yarn production, which I'm going to circle back on later in the podcast, and you will see why. It has something to do with those acquisitions. Spoiler alert. But anyway, I think it was just the yarn was not a good match for the pattern. But getting back to the pattern, I think this is a great pattern, and I appreciate being included in the test by Rita. And yeah, I've already worn this a couple times, and I'll definitely be keeping this in heavy rotation in my wardrobe. I'm just like super into vests right now. I feel like we're starting to come out of vest season a little bit here in New England, although the past couple of days honestly have been really cold. So, you know, maybe it's here a little while longer. All right, and my third finished object is, you guessed it, another test knit. I have been doing a lot of test knits, even after at the beginning of the year kind of resolving that I was going to be really selective with my test knits. I feel like I have actually been pretty selective with what I apply for and what I kind of, you know, let go for, you know, possibly knitting later once the pattern is published. But, you know, I do really like working in the process of a test knit. I also like working with a deadline. I find that I am a lot more productive when I have those deadlines that are coming from somewhere else. You know, I can make all the self-imposed deadlines in the world, but honestly, I don't respect my own deadlines very well. I do respect the deadlines that other people put on me, and I take them very seriously. So I'm kind of just in that cycle right now, and I like it because I'm getting more into test knitting, but it does kind of get me working on a variety of projects where, you know, when I'm thinking about what I'm going to make over the next several months, like I've got sweaters in my mind for the most part, but then, you know, these test knits come up, you know, for a shawl or for a scarf, you know, for different accessories, and I'm very happy to kind of slide them into my my knitting rotation. So I'm very thankful, and I'm gonna, you know, I'm sure I will continue to work on test knits. I do have 3 active test knits right now, with a 4th coming online, although one of them, at least one of probably 2 of my test knits will be complete before I start that other one. So yeah, don't get nervous. I'm not, and if you're one of the designers that I'm testing for, don't be nervous. I am very confident that I can meet all of your deadlines. Okay, my finished object is the Star Scarf, and this was a test knit for Tori Yu, and she is Tori Knits NYC, I think, on Instagram. And this was my first test knit with Tori. I've always admired her patterns so much. I love her design aesthetic, and I love her approach to design. I find a lot of her patterns are very like simple, but like have these little ingenious details that make them really special. And, you know, clearly she's doing amazing, and has a really big following and a lot of people making her patterns. So this is her latest pattern. It is a mini scarf, falls into the category of a mini scarf. Oops, I'm showing you the wrong side, I think. Yep. So basically you pick 2 colors. It's a DK weight or fingering weight. And then on top of getting to choose your weight of yarn, you also can choose the length of your scarf. So I chose DK weight and the longer length. So you can kind of see, I can't fit it in the whole, it's almost fitting. There we go. That's how long it is. And I know it's going to be a little bit silly on top of my shawl, but this, I'm not going to tie it very professionally either, but this gives you at least a little idea of the size of the biggest size. So I used Malabrigo Rios, and the colorways are Pearl 10 and Frank Ochre. And originally I was going to use the Pearl 10 with another yarn I had in stash, but I realized the gauges of the yarns were a little too different. And I had very, very little Frank Ochre left in my stash. So I just went ahead and bought another skein of Frank Ochre. My goal for this scarf was to make something in my college colors. I went to Williams College. I've probably mentioned that before on this podcast, but in case you didn't see it, go Eves. I wanted something that I could sort of add to an outfit without being bedecked in purple and gold. I already made a shawl in these colors, as well as like an off-white that I really like, but it's a little dressier. So this gives me like a kind of a more sporty, more casual option to layer on, and something I can wear on campus. I actually have my 25th reunion coming up. And depending on the weather, I definitely hope to bring this with me and wear it. Having a scarf like this is great. There's just so many different ways you can style it. I literally only did one, but I saw some pictures of people using it like as a headband, tied. I don't want to do it right now because I would really need to get my hair underneath it, but I'll try to throw a picture on. I think Tori herself actually has a picture up of her wearing it that way, with tied and hanging down in the back, which I thought was really cute. But anyway, this is a great little diversion, stash buster. Literally you could use 2 different weights of yarn and you can make it 2 different lengths. It's just done using simple wrap and turn short rows. You don't even have to resolve the short rows. Like, it's so easy. You don't have to resolve the wraps in the short rows, I should say. So there you go. The Star Scarf by Tori Yu. My next finished object, I'm cheating a little bit. It's not actually a finished object, I think. So I have talked before about how I'm not a sock knitter. I've never knit a pair of socks in my life. And I did start knitting a sock when I was on vacation back in March. I realized after completing the heel turn and the gusset that I couldn't fit that sock over my heel. So I started over again. And basically what I learned is that my gauge was really pretty close. I was able to achieve a gauge that was pretty close to what the designer recommended, which was something between 9 and 10 stitches per inch. So that's really, really fine work that I didn't think I could do as a loose knitter. But it turns out if I size down to a US 0 size needle, I can actually knit at 9 stitches per inch, which blew my mind. So anyway, I just went back to the drawing board. I started over again, started knitting my size. The pattern is from the Summer Lee book, The Sock Project, which if this book does not inspire you to want to make socks, then I think you should just give up. Because this is, honestly, I've looked through this book so many times. It's just the most fun, well presented, written in such a fun style. The colors are amazing. The way that Summer puts colors together is just unique and amazing. So, and there's just so many great patterns in here. As a new sock knitter, I started with the very first pattern in the book, which is a basic, I think it's called like sock number 1 or something. It's a heel flap and gusset. And I knit a shorty sock, and I actually started it, I don't know, and then put it down for a while. And something happened last week where I just got a burst of sock making energy, and I decided over the course of 2 days, I just ripped it out, and I not ripped it out. I mean, I like cranked it out. That's the right term. Ripping it out is what I did with the one that did not fit me. So anyway, it's not blocked. It's only one sock, but it's a sock, and I made a sock, and I'm so happy. And it looks really wonky right now because it's not blocked. But I still love it, and it fits me. I put it on my foot, and it actually fits me. I feel like I'm an elf where he's like, I'm in love and I'm loved and I don't care who knows it. So yeah, okay, I might be getting a little loopy now, but so here's my sock. Now all I have to do is knit another one, because there's all these other socks now I want to knit in this book, but I can't do that until I have a matching one of this, right? Someone tell me that is the rule, because I don't want to have that what do they call it? One sock syndrome. And I don't think I'm quite ready to knit 2 at a time. I enjoyed having one on my needles and just kind of working it like a little mini project. So my yarns that I used are Hedgehog Fibres sock yarn, and the body of this, the main yarn, is colorway Moonstone. And I am cracking up now because I never can remember the name of this orange yarn. It's a 3-word name of the colorway. I just can't remember. So I'll put it on the screen, and we'll just continue to laugh about the fact that like I just have a mental block about this. I normally have actually a pretty good memory and a very visual memory. So the number of times that I have seen the name of this yarn and not been able to remember it later is kind of embarrassing. But anyway, I've got a sock. I need to make another one. I don't have a timeline to finish this. I think it's just going to be one of those things again where I get like the sudden urge to make sock, and I'll bust it out in a couple of days time. Maybe I'll start one here and take one with me when I go to Germany in the beginning of June. I think that might be a good plan to have as one of my on-the-go projects, because it's certainly not going to take up much space in my carry-on. All right, now we're going to move on to works in progress. And I feel like my WIPs are a little bit all over the place and possibly also not very photogenic, but so bear with me. We'll probably go through them pretty quickly. I am working on another test knit with Rita Dowd, and this is, I'm literally in the middle of an I-cord bind off where I'm also trying to make I-cord buttonholes, which I haven't done, or button loops, I guess. So I'm working through that part of the pattern, so things are looking a little bit wonky, but this will, so let me show you the back. It's kind of like a quilted stitch pattern. It's quite obviously unblocked because the stitches are really like kind of seizing up with one another, but you can see I've already completed the I-cord bind off along the bottom edge. And then the front will be, the I-cord will continue around the armholes, around, you know, the inside edge. I'm gonna have a few buttons on one side, and then the buttonhole loops on the other. And I'll probably mostly wear it open. The original design, the way it was presented, had those like I-cord ties, which I thought was really pretty. And I would have made it that way too if I had not had the most perfect buttons to go along with this vest. So I'd gotten these buttons for another project and I thought they were black and white from the website photo, but when they arrived, they were brown and white. I don't know if you can see. There, they're into focus. These are from, they're clay, I believe. They're from Holland Hoof Farm. And that is a vendor that I visited for the first time in Rhinebeck last fall. And I knew I didn't really need to shop for any buttons then, but I knew that I would be back either to their booth or online or both. And so I just think that these are gonna look so great with this brown color. Oh, and I haven't even told you what this yarn is. This is Blue Sky Fibres Sweater. So the yarn is called Sweater, and the colorway is, I think it's called Chocolate Milk. It's either chocolate milk or milk chocolate, which I don't know. I feel like that's pretty accurate. It's this kind of taupey color. Again, totally matching my background. Obviously, I seem to be pretty consistent with my color palette. Although I say that, but I do use a lot of different colors in my knitting. And this is a very neutral color for me. I'm usually knitting in a lot more colorful yarns. I really liked this neutral, and I know that I'll be able to wear anything underneath it, whether it's like a white top like this or, you know, something with more color. It's going to be very versatile in my wardrobe. So that's a test knit. I'm almost done with it. I'll probably be ready to block it later today. And the pattern though won't be released for a while. Probably, I would guess in July at some time. The deadline for the test knit was the end of June, but with some flexibility. So it's possible that the release of the pattern could get pushed off a little bit longer. Excited to share that, but it might be a while before you see it again. Again, that is the, I don't even think I told you what it was called. It's called the Rita Quilted Vest. And again, it's by Rita Dowd, or LimunCrafted on Instagram. My next work in progress is, you guessed it, another test knit. I signed on to do a test knit for a tank top. I have never made a tank top before. I didn't really know I wanted a tank top until I saw a picture of this on Instagram and said, ooh, that looks really cool. And actually, I think it would be a really great layering piece underneath blazers or cardigans, which is probably how I would wear it most. The designer of this pattern, which I think is yet unnamed, it's just called like New Tank Pattern or New Tank Test. The designer is Julie from Twin Stitches, and I can't remember her Instagram. I think her Instagram is Julianne Knitter, Julianne, A-N-N. Anyway, I have been working on this, although it's been a little bit on hold because I'm taking this with me on my trip to Germany, and this is going to be my travel project. So I know I'm going to I should almost finish it in that trip, I think. Right now, all I have done is the back. So this is the back panel of the tank. So this will be the the neck, and then the straps will kind of come down from here, or sorry, I'm showing you the right side. They'll come, you know, back here, and then you see the increases for the armhole. So it's a pretty dramatic increase because the tank, it's not like quite a racer back, but you can see like it narrows quite a bit. I'm not showing you my back, but you can see like that it narrows quite a bit, to kind of show a little bit, not all the way to the shoulder blade, but like in that general direction. So I decided to use stash yarns for this project. The main color is this purple, and it is a 100% superwash merino wool fingering weight from Woolen Women Fibres. The colorway is called Milky Way, and it's just this really super pretty purple tonal. And I've had it in my stash for quite a while, and I just thought this is its time to shine. The tank does call for a striped pattern at the bottom, kind of like underneath the bust. So I found another stash yarn that I thought would complement this purple really well. And I think it actually might even be the exact same base of yarn. It is another fingering weight superwash merino with a, 2-ply, it looks like. And this one is from Madeline Tosh. It's Tosh sock yarn, and the colorway of this is Grasshopper. So this is more of like a chartreuse green. It's not quite my Williams gold and purple, but I really like this fun, bright color contrast. So I will be rocking and rolling on that project over the course of the first couple of weeks of June. And the pattern, I think, will be released a little bit later in June. I think maybe like the 3rd or 4th week of June. So I will definitely share the finished object and along with the pattern release when it is ready. Believe it or not, other than the sock, I actually do have one other WIP that is not a test knit. This was just strictly like a dopamine knit that I needed to get started on. It's the Alpine Bloom by Caitlin Hunter. And I think the last time I talked about it, I only just had picked out my yarns. And now I have knit my way through about 1/3 of the yoke. I was knitting away on this until the test knits kind of came in hot and heavy. And so the progress has been very slow of late. I opted not to do the lace neckline as well as the lace panels on the sleeve that get like grafted on. I just kind of wanted like the, quick impact of this color work and didn't want to like futz with the lace in this particular project. So I skipped it and I just did a rolled neck, and I'll just do, I don't know if I'll do like a 1x1 rib on the bottom of the sleeves to finish it off. We will see, but my 2 yarns that I'm using for this are, so the dark purple color is Malabrigo Sock. The colorway is Eggplant. And then the contrast color is this color changing yarn. This is just one, part of a skein of yarn, which is Spincycle dyed in the wool. And the colorway is called Sex on the Beach. And this is gonna go, you can see the purple going into these kind of orangey reds. It's gonna go a little back more toward yellow, and then actually transition into beautiful teal as well. So I can't wait to see the colors. I mean, that is part of the appeal and the allure of working with these kinds of yarns for me. And I work with them all the time, is just waiting to see like, what's it gonna look like? When's the color gonna show up? As a interior designer, I was always very color focused. So, this is kind of why I do this. This is what gets me. jazzed about knitting. So I don't really know, you know, this might get put on ice for a little while until I clear some of these test knits off the decks. But I'm really liking where it's going. I love the contrast. I love the combination of colors that are happening. And so at some point this summer, it will be finished and I'll be wearing it. All right, so I feel like this is very unprofessional, but there were a couple of WIPs that I forgot to film, and I wanted to be sure to include them, even if it means doing them in kind of a janky way. So I'm gonna show you here just briefly, because if I only do these types of podcasts every few weeks where I'm sharing my works in progress, these are gonna just be completely missed for different reasons. So this is a work in progress of the Anjou tank, which I think I did mention at one point that it was a project I'd be casting on soon. So all there is at this point is the strap, one of the front straps. I am working this up in 2 colors of Juniper Moon Farm Zooey, and it is a cotton and linen blend. I wanted to pause because this is actually a gift knit. I'm making this for my niece, and she lives locally, and so I popped by her apartment over the weekend and we did a little fitting. I had her you know, we held this up and just made sure that, so this is the front part and this is the inside that will kind of get connected. You know, there will be stitches casted on to connect it with the right side strap. And so anyway, we had her try on a couple of her tops that are similarly styled. And I took measurements so that I was able to sort of have in my mind what her ideal length is. And I'm so sorry for any background noise. My Murphy's Law is definitely working really hard right now. My landscapers are here, and I'm grateful they're here, but I'm sorry that if it is distracting. Anyway, so she wants this to be relatively fitted, so I just want to sort of check in with her at the appropriate phases of this project and make sure that it is going to be fitting the way that she wants. And the time frame that it needs to be finished is kind of driven by my own travel schedule. I am leaving in the beginning of June. I'm going with my family to Germany for a few days, and then I have travel coming up after that pretty much as soon as I get back. So she wants to have this for her own travel to Greece coming up in, like, I think it's mid to late June. So I really just need to have this done before I leave. So this is gonna be probably my main focus over the next week and a half. And I think it'll be doable. I mean, this is a mosaic knit, but this worked up pretty quickly, and it's a small piece since I'm knitting the smallest size, and it is a cropped and, you know, relatively fitted piece. So I think it'll go by pretty quickly. I'll just show you the yarn. Again, this is 2 different colors of Zooey. This one is from the Stripes collection. I can't remember what the colorway is called. It's some sort, oh, Mojito, I believe, Mojito. And then this one is just a plain solid. It's toasted coconut. So, oh my gosh, I am getting manicure today. Finally, my recovery of my nails is almost complete. So anyway, this is the Anjou tank, and it will be done by the next time I film a work in progress podcast, and it will no longer be in my possession. So I'll make sure I get some pictures to share. All right, are you ready for my next work in progress? It's kind of a surprise, and it's going to require a little bit of explanation. Actually, probably quite a bit of explanation. You ready? 1, 2, 3. Yes, this is crochet. This is not knitting. I have made some granny squares for the purposes of making a Getty tee. And this is a new pattern from Tanis Lavely. And she is from Tanis Fiber Arts. And she has already made like a hybrid crochet and knitting pattern called Jethro. It was a cardigan pattern that was really popular last year. I think this genre of hybrid crochet and knitting patterns is a growing genre apparently. I don't know, maybe it's giving crafters an opportunity to flex their crafting muscle a little bit differently, but I just learned how to crochet. I had no idea how to crochet until a few weeks ago. I took a couple of classes at my local yarn store, the Unruly Stitch, and my friend Erica Field also took it with me. So we went kind of like as complete novices. We learned the basics of crochet in the first class. And then in the second class, we learned how to make granny squares. And so I wanted to sort of make sure that I cemented that learning into my brain somehow. And so I was looking for a pattern that would be kind of like an easy entree into crochet, just to like test the waters a little bit. And serendipitously, this pattern came out like just at the right time. And I had already seen the Jethro. I had seen this other pattern called the Ariana cardigan, which I thought maybe looked even a little bit more appealing to me than the Jethro. I'll pop a picture on so you can see what that looks like, but it's another cardigan sweater, but the granny squares are sort of arranged on the bias. So it's like a diagonal, it's diamonds instead of squares. But that's a lot of granny squares. And if I decided along the way I didn't really enjoy crocheting, that would be a shame to have spent all that time and not really like enjoy it. So this one that came along only required 4 granny squares. So I figured this is the absolute perfect starting project for me. So I made these granny squares over the weekend, and I used yarn that I had in stash that I thought would be ideal for this Getty top. It is Sandnes Garn Lena, and Lena is a blend of, let me just grab, I'll show you one. Lena is 53% cotton, 33% viscose, and 14% linen. It is, I think, technically a worsted weight yarn. The pattern gauge for this is DK, and I didn't have any trouble getting gauge for these granny squares. I will have to gauge swatch for the knitted portion of this, which I'm gonna do in this light gray color. I have quite a bit of this colorway in my stash. And then these granny squares, they're definitely not perfect. The gauge is a little bit uneven, inconsistent, whatever you want to say, but I think they came out, they're not blocked either, just FYI. I think I'm gonna take the approach of, integrating them into the garment and then blocking everything at once and just, kind of trying to shape everything into place accordingly. So that is where we're at with the Getty tee. The project update that you maybe didn't want or didn't expect, but yeah, so I'm exploring a little bit with crochet. I'm crochet curious. I am definitely not jumping ship with knitting anytime soon. So, this is the extent of my crochet exploration so far to date. The Getty tee will probably not be finished anytime soon, but at least I have this part done and I didn't forget how to make the granny squares. All right, that concludes my works in progress. And so now we're going on to acquisitions. So I just want to say that I accidentally, maybe not so accidentally, bought way too much yarn over the past couple of weeks. And I just had this burst of creativity, or I don't know, just figuring out the things that I knew I wanted to make over the next months, even years probably at this point. And just started like buying the yarns I would need to make those particular projects. And I was just finding the things that I was looking for. Sometimes it takes, weeks or months to find them. Sometimes you find them right away. So when I find them, I tend to buy them because I know what I like and I know what I want. And I'm fortunate enough to be able to take action on those things when I do buy them. So I am not going to show you every single skein of yarn that I have purchased over the course of the past 2 weeks, but suffice it to say that it was a lot, and it's definitely enough to get me through like the apocalypse at this point, or the yarn apocalypse, which may in fact be coming given the state of the world, the global economy and tariffs and who else, who knows what's really going to happen. It's really anyone's guess, but whatever happens with all of that, like my stash, the state of my stash is quite good and quite healthy and quite varied. So I am ready for anything. I did want to share a portion of my acquisitions because there is a special circumstance attached to that. So earlier on, I mentioned Brooklyn Tweed is ceasing yarn production, which if you've been following the news in the knitting industry, I'm sure you've already heard. I happened to go on their site a couple of weeks ago during the clearance sale, and I saw that the selection was becoming very limited, and so I snagged a few things generally for specific projects, and for specific reasons. And I'm so glad that I did that actually, and that I didn't wait, because within a couple of days, like everything was gone, like all of it. It went down to 30% off. And I don't think they needed to reduce it any more than that. Like there was no like 50%, 60%, like escalating scale of discounts. It was just 30%. Like that was enough for people to just like clear it all out. So and I think some of the local yarn stores probably got some of that inventory as well, maybe placing some last minute orders to stock up so that they could, offer it to their own customers. But I wanted to share some of what I got through the Brooklyn Tweed website, as well as some that I bought through a local yarn store. The first yarn that I wanted to share is from their Tones collection. So this is a worsted weight yarn, and it is American Columbia wool. It is a woolen spun yarn, 3-ply, and they all came in these like varied colorways. So each color has what they call an overtone and an undertone. So the overtone is like kind of like the clear, crisp version of the color. And then the undertone is like the heathered, darker, murkier version of the color. I'm kind of disappointed because I feel like on the screen this is showing just as a gray. It's actually a blue gray that's pretty complementary to this. That's the idea behind this whole line. I don't think there was any other company that was doing stuff like this, that were kind of making intentional coordinates for you to be able to kind of play with in your knitting. So I wanted to make sure that I bought some and used it in the intended way before it was too late. So I had a pattern in mind for this. In this case, Tori Yu, when I completed the test knit for the star scarf, she gifts her test knitters an additional pattern from her library in addition to getting the pattern you tested for free. And I chose her downtown hoodie. After knitting the Traveler hoodie by Andrea Mowry in the spring, I really realized that I like that type of garment and I wanted to knit more of that. Not necessarily hoodies, but more casual, more sweatshirty type wearables. So I picked out these colors to make my downtown hoodie. The main color is going to be this blue-green. I don't know if I can even get it to look the color that it actually is. It just looks gray. That's so sad. So this is going to be the main color, and then I'm going to do some striping in this blue. Not a big contrast, but I think it'll be really pretty. I'll show the picture of the downtown hoodie on the screen with the version that does have the narrow striping on the sleeves and the body. So that is my first acquisition. I also picked up from the Brooklyn Tweed website some Imbue Sport, and I just picked up a sweater's quantity of this. Didn't exactly have a project in mind. I mean, I kind of did, but I have to say I'm probably going to keep my options open. I just really, really, really love the colorway of this. It's called Pete. There weren't many colors left, but this was one of them when I was shopping. So it is like it's obviously a brown. Look with the background matching again. But it has a little bit of a reddish, pinkish nuance. It's just a really warm brown, and I want to have, I think, more neutral knits in my wardrobe. You know, sometimes I like to wear colorful pants, and it's just easier to, you know, or skirts. It's just easier to layer on neutral hand knits. So the Imbue Sport is the sport weight version of Imbue Worsted, which we're going to talk about in a little while too. This is a non-superwash merino wool. It is worsted spun, 3-ply, and each skein has 190 yards. I bought 9 skeins, so I have quite a lot. I have, you know, a good healthy sweaters quantity for my size. I'm considering the Come Back Again by Andrea Mowry, and this is a pattern that came out recently, just a textured cardigan with some pockets. I really like the design, and I like the idea of having more of like a textured cardigan. I've done a lot of very colorful cardigans, one of which I finished recently but can't show you yet because it was for a test knit. Again, I will share it when I'm able to, once the pattern is released. But this is a very soft yarn, but it is also going to show texture really well. I feel like Imbue is a great all-purpose yarn, and I am really excited to work with it in this sport weight. I'm guessing it's probably going to be a while before I get around to this one, but you never know. So Imbue Sport in sweaters quantity. At my local yarn shop, or one of my local yarn shops, I'm very blessed to live where I do because we have so many wonderful shops, and none of them are actually in my town. I live in Newton, Massachusetts. There's not really like a shop that's open to the public on normal hours in my town, but in the surrounding towns, we have some amazing yarn shops. So the one in my area that carried Brooklyn Tweed is called Knit, Tuck and Purl, and it is in Lexington, Massachusetts, right in downtown. It's a newer yarn shop. It opened last summer, I think, so it's even less than a year old at this point. I had previously ordered some skeins of this Imbue worsted from them in this beautiful purple color called Tapestry. And I was not exactly sure what I was going to make with it, but I sort of bought like a vest's quantity of it, I would say. And later on, once things started going down with Brooklyn Tweed, coincidentally, I had come across a pattern that I thought my mom would like. My mom is a new knitter, and she's got to learn how to knit in the round next. That's sort of like her next stepping stone. And so I found what I thought was like a really beginner-friendly, basic raglan sweater pattern. And as I looked at it, I was sort of like, you know, I think I would like to knit this too. Why don't we knit it together as a knit along? And so that's exactly what we're gonna do. But I was like, I kind of wanna knit it with this imbue, but I don't have enough of it. And then I checked the inventory with the yarn shop, and they did have this colorway plus another one in stock still at a discounted price. So I picked up more of the tapestry, and I also picked up some of this colorway called Vapor, and I'm going to use this for the stripes. The pattern that I am going to knit along with my mom starting in July is going to be the coloring book Raglan, and that is by Amy Scher. And you know, I have already perused the pattern. I love how it is organized. I love how she gives options for different ways of you know, making the sweater, whether you want it to be a little more like a unisex styling, a little more fitted, or do you want it to be boxy and oversized and cropped? Do you want stripes? Do you not want stripes? And then the coloring book aspect comes in when, you know, they give you all these schematic drawings where you could literally draw if you wanted to with colored pencil or markers or crayons or whatever you have to kind of test out different color combinations. I think it would be really cool to do it with stash yarns too, if you just wanted to do your stripes like in different colors or make a gradient. But I just wanted to kind of keep it simple and use these two yarns with this as the main color and this is the stripes. So this project will kind of get going relatively soon, within the next like 6 weeks. And I'll be looking forward to providing updates on that. And I'll also share some of my mom's progress. I'm gonna see her that first week of July. We always get together as a family, an extended family that is, for 4th of July week in the Berkshires, where we have a second home. And so I think it'll be really fun for us to cast on together and start working on it. And that way I can sort of help her, you know, get going with knitting in the round and just troubleshooting anything that she may need. But I know once she gets going on it, it's just gonna be, I'm sure she will finish it before I do, because she, right now as a monogamous knitter, only works on one project at a time, whereas I have all these other things going on. And so I'm sure she will probably beat me to the finish line, which is totally fine. I have no problem with that. I'd be very proud if she did. So while I was picking up my order for those additional skeins of imbue worsted, I found a little table with all the leftover Brooklyn Tweed yarns that remained, which was not much at all. And I found one that I just could not pass up. I could not leave it there. It is Arbor. And it was really, though, the colorway that I was taken by. It is called Spruce. So Arbor is a DK weight worsted spun wool. It is 100% American Targhee wool. I've never knit with Targhee before. It seems very springy. It's pretty soft, a little bit lofty, and but the color is just like so spectacular. So I bought, again, roughly a sweater's quantity. I didn't have a project in mind, but I just knew that I could not leave the store without this yarn in my bag. So I took every last skein that there was in this color, which got me to, I can't remember. I don't remember how many skeins I bought, but it's enough to make a sweater. The leading contender right now for what I will make with this, which is definitely subject to change, is the Pawnee pullover by Audrey Borrego. And she is a designer that recently decided to kind of get out of the business. And so in doing so, she has basically made all of her previously published patterns free. And so it's very generous of her. And, you know, I think it's kind of a unique opportunity to get a pattern that was it was tested, it was tech edited, you know, everything should be completely buttoned up, and the quality of the design is really, really fabulous. So I think that I'd like to try knitting one of her patterns, and because I think her designs they're just a little bit unique. They just have something that's a little bit different than the thing that you see every day, the thing that's like everyone else seems to be making. So I am really considering knitting the Pawnee. I also have a full skein plus probably about 2/3 of a skein left of the Brooklyn Tweed shelter that was left over from my Woody Vest test knit. So if you guys have any ideas on patterns that might work well for shelter yarn in smaller quantities, I'd definitely love to hear about it. I mean, at this point I could make mittens or a hat, probably not both, but maybe both. And you know, I just am not really sure what to do with it. I'm considering destashing. So that gets me to my next sort of discussion topic that I need to save for another time, because we're already pretty long at this point, and I did reference earlier that I felt like I've bought a lot of yarn. I am definitely feeling the itch to do more stash busting projects, and I'm starting to collect a lot of ideas for those types of projects. I will probably do a dedicated episode in the next couple of weeks on those types of projects. I did recently buy a digital copy of the 52 weeks of scrap yarn. It was apparently sold out online for the most part, so I just bought the PDF, and I have no regrets about that, because I think it'll be much easier than to just print out the pages that I want to use for the patterns that I'm interested in. But I'm already starting to kind of go through that book and identify patterns that I want to make, and starting to stash away the yarns that will help me make them in their own little bags. And so I'm really excited to explore that area more that I haven't done it, but it is time. I just have accumulated so many leftovers, extra skeins here and there, and I know there's just so much that I could do with them, and it's time to put them to work and clear them out. But the scrappy knitting topic is going to have to hold off, I think, for one more week, because I have a plan for next week, which is to talk about Rhinebeck. And Rhinebeck is, if you are the uninitiated, which you might be, Rhinebeck is sort of the colloquial way of referring to the New York Sheep and Wool Festival, which happens in October of each year on the Dutchess County Fairgrounds, I believe, in New York State, in Rhinebeck, New York. And I went to Rhinebeck for the first time last year, and I came away with some fabulous purchases, a really wonderful experience, and some really interesting observations that I had in my time there. And one of my observations was just about the whole idea around the Rhinebeck sweater, and how there seems to be some varying approaches to, you know, people wanting to make like a special garment to wear, or to, you know, maybe pick from the things that they've made through the course of that year as their special thing that they're going to wear to that fiber festival. I have been fascinated by, I was just really, really fascinated by what I saw there. And so I want to talk about that. And I'm also going to share what my own plans are for Rhinebeck. I am actually thinking about 2 sweaters, and I am not 100% sure if it's feasible to complete them both, but I am hopeful. One of them will definitely be completed. But I'm going to just talk a little bit about, again, those different philosophies that I see, and my own personal philosophy, and how I have approached my Rhinebeck sweater endeavors. So please tune in next week. I hope to see you there. If you are not already subscribed, please go ahead, and if you are so inclined, please subscribe, and I would be delighted to have you in the community. And if you liked this video, please also give it a like. I would be really appreciative of this, and it all helps to get other people to see this content. It's really a struggle out there, I would say, to like gain viewership, and gaining viewership is not really like my primary goal. I want to just kind of do this the way that I want to do it. I want to talk about yarn and knitting and things going on in the community and in the industry. And if you are game for that and you like that, then I hope you will stick around, and feel free to ask any questions or leave any comments below. I do get around to responding to everyone, at least at this point in time. Thank you again so much, and I hope to see you in the next one.